Hello and welcome back, you rot-infested muties. Surviving alone is not enough. The people need hope for a brighter future or they will perish. The end of the world is a reason to despair and a chance to create a new society free from the constraints of history and tradition. Keep in mind the name of the game is survival for the characters and the people. However, the key is agreeing on the path to take in the Dawn world. To help the players along this path, the arc uses 4 development levels, or what's called devs. If the arc collapses under the pressures of the zone, the characters are left to fend for themselves, so always keep this in mind. To thrive as a community, the people and the characters have 4 areas to choose from. The first one is food supply, the arc's capacity to provide sustenance for its inhabitants. Culture, the people's ability to express themselves through writing, art, and other cultural forms. Technology, the people's understanding of artifacts and their ability to create new technological innovations. Lastly, we have warfare. The art can defend itself against attacks and eliminate threats from inside and outside its walls. Each category is rated on a scale from 0 to 30 or higher. A higher rating, of course, indicates better performance in that category and can positively impact the arc's inhabitants. The core book outlines the narrative and mechanical effects of the above categories during gameplay. However, the group can adjust these categories if they are not explicitly described. Remember that context is often vital when only a narrative entry is provided. So, while you can follow the example, it could be more interesting rather than just saying it's automatically completed to have to venture back into the zone to gather the necessary junk to develop one of these categories. The people can undertake a project, or the characters can hand over artifacts and place them inside the Dawn Vault to get these things going. Throughout the game, you can improve the arc by having the people undertake various projects. Now, these projects can range and they can consist of establishing a palisade, a mushroom farm, to setting up a tribunal, or maybe opening a theater, if you can believe it. These projects involve a significant portion of the people, not just the player characters. Now, the core book recommends that at the beginning of every session, as long as one or more player characters are in the arc, the players hold an assembly. This involves, as has been mentioned before, temporarily stepping out of the characters and representing the entire people as players rather than the characters to consider these potential projects. However, it's unnecessary to do it this way. An assembly can be called at any time. Say, for example, if a threat causes conflict within the arc, a project gets sabotaged. An assembly may be necessary to be called and try and do something about it. When choosing a project, consider 2 things: the minimum dev required to get the project started and how many work points the project needs. When a project has been started, it does not necessarily mean that it will be completed. For a project to make progress during a session, the characters in the game must actively work on it. It's not just the player characters who are actually doing the work, though, but their level of interest is used to indicate the group's commitment as a whole. At any point, as long as you are in the arc, you can choose to work on one of many projects. However, you can only do this once per session. It doesn't matter if you, as the player, initiated the project or not. To work on a project, you should describe what's going on and make any necessary dice rolls using whatever skill is listed next to the project. If you have helpful gear, you can also add the gear dice in. You can attempt to push this roll as usual for the usual consequences. You can also choose to help or hinder another PC, but then you won't be getting to roll for yourself during the same session. Each success decreases the point value of the work points by 1 until it's up and running during gameplay. After completion, mark it on your arc map. During gameplay, player characters and non-player characters can sabotage projects, regardless of whether they've been completed or not. Projects can also be destroyed if the Ark is attacked. This is somewhere around page 114, 15, 16, somewhere in there. If a project is destroyed, it will be erased from the map. If a project was already completed, roll as many 6-sided dice as were rolled when the project was completed and decrease the dev rating accordingly. The group can choose to undertake the same project later at a different time. So if something is destroyed or sabotaged or incompleted, don't worry about it. The group can choose to destroy an ongoing project or a completed one intentionally, but it would be recommended that take place during an assembly and that everybody agree to do it. Now, unfortunately, the ARC projects are not listed by category, so you'll need to look over them to find something that fits. If you don't see something or have a solid idea, develop your own ARC project concept. So what about artifacts? Artifacts are found when you go trekking through the zone. In addition, artifacts also have 2 numeric values, a dev requirement and a dev bonus. These values are similar to the ones found when you're looking at the project descriptions. The dev requirement is the minimum level in one of the 4 categories that the ARC must have reached for all members to be able to easily understand it and use the artifact. Now, the dev bonus is added to the dev rating of the ARC, but only if it's handed into the Dawn Vault. This means that if you find an artifact, you must choose between using it for yourself or handing it over for the benefit of the group. Now, I'm not going to cover all of the projects. Just note that in this genre, there might be something you disagree with. Keep in mind another theme of Mutant Year Zero. That is to build a new society. The choice of projects represent the type of society that the players are trying to build. While the group might stay away from certain projects, that does not mean that other ARCs out there in the zone will. This can, of course, create conflict if the people of 2 ARCs meet and they have chosen different paths to build their new society in the Dawn world. So this is a nice little short cover for what it means to work on the ARC. I hope this also kind of gives you some kind of inspiration and insight into why the ARC is not just a minigame. Working on this is part of the theme of Mutant Year Zero. That is the building of a new society. It's not just run, gun, collect, and murder hobo your way through the wasteland. Although you can play it that way, but you probably won't last very long. You will eventually run into something. Mutated nature, zone ghouls, rot, the cult, who knows? There is something in the zone that is going to take you out. So that's it for this one. As always, everybody, get out there, play some games, have some fun, and just be cool with one another.